So with the land sky, it's not just
I'd like to call to order the February 3rd Board of Commissioners meeting. Thanks for joining us. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Anyone parking for this meeting or using the bus can pick up passes on their way out this evening, and it will be valid for today only. Ethics reminder to the board: in accordance with the Code of Ethics adopted by the board, all county commissioners have a duty to obey all applicable laws regarding official actions, to uphold the integrity and independence of the office, to avoid impropriety in the exercise of official duties, to faithfully perform the duties of the office, and to conduct the affairs of the governing board in an open and public manner. Is there any item on the agenda this evening, the outcome of which will have a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact for any board member? Does any board member have a financial interest in any public contract coming before this board today? There being none, all board members have a duty and obligation to vote. We move to our consent agenda. Does anyone from the public have questions or comments about this evening's consent agenda? Commissioners, there being none, do we have a motion to approve and proceed as?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Consent agenda is approved, and we will follow the agenda as printed. All right, that brings us to public comment this evening. The time limit for individual comment to the board is 3 minutes. Please state your name before you begin speaking. If your time expires, you may leave any question along with your name, address, and phone number with the county manager. Board members are not expected to comment on any matters during public comment. This is your time to speak to us. All public comments must be directed to the board as a whole, not to individual commissioners, staff, or audience members. There's no clapping, snapping, or booing allowed during public comment. The board reserves the right to deny public address on any subject previously presented to the board during the same meeting. Please note, a group can elect one person to speak for 10 minutes if 8 people in attendance relinquish their right to speak on the issue. We do have several signed up for public comment, and just to differentiate, we will have a public hearing later on the CPACE. So we do have one signed up for that, but if you're here to speak for public comment, this will be your time. And John Keene is our first who signed up. All right, I'm just going to go down the list, and then anyone who wants to speak who didn't sign up, I'll come back. Okay, so I will take you off, John. Thank you. David Clark. You'll join us at the podium, and you'll have 3 minutes.
I'd like to take.
Oh, wait, can you? Oh, you want to get 10? Okay. So you want 10 minutes. You have 8 people. Hold your hands up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and himself. All right. We are good. Thank you. All right. Thank you, David.
Oh, thank you.
It's good to see you.
Okay, thanks. So I'm David Clark. I'm a professor at the University of North Carolina at Asheville in the biology department. I've been there 26 years. The university would like you to know that I do not speak for them. There was a whole meeting we had that was discussed. So to be clear, I'm speaking as an individual and really as a member of the Friends of the Woods, who are here in force again today. Now, I know we promised to leave you alone, but I didn't say forever. So we're back with the commission being formed, and we have an ask, but really we're looking for advice, I think, is what we need. And like I said before, I realize you guys are underpaid and overworked. I bet your emails are pretty full at this point, more full than mine on a snow day anyhow, so I appreciate that. One other thing I've learned is that you guys, you get conversations, you get privy to conversations that we're excluded from, which maybe is the way of the world. There's a certain Bush telegraph I've learned that goes on among various elected officials with other dignitaries, including trustees, chancellors, et cetera. And that's where we would like your influence and some advice. So I'm one of the few people in the university community that speaks out on this issue of the Millennium Campus. And, I'd just like to use that privilege to give you the inside view of things. Because I'm telling you from the outside, what I read on the outward-facing emails, Facebook posts, so forth from the university is a lot like whistling past the graveyard. That's what we have going on up there. From the inside, I can give you some examples. We have HVAC positions open. We need 2 people to help our HVAC team. It's been listed for a year, there's been no applicants. And looking at our university, we make a lot of hot air. We need help with moving that air around, right? So the fact that they don't even have applicants just means they're not trying. You guys have HVAC techs in this building, right? When you got to hire them, you got to pay them something competitive. They're not even trying. So the staff are demoralized, frontline staff in particular. The students also are alienated. It's very sad. Our current students. And I want to credit the master's students. We have a new master's in environmental resilience. We can't call it climate change. We've been shut down from calling it that. And they pointed this out, that the way they feel is that they graduated mostly from UNCA, came back to get a master's, and they feel like the university is being changed in a direction that they don't recognize anymore, they don't feel comfortable with. So it's hard to really change your brand without alienating your current cohort of students. And they're definitely running into that problem. That leads to a morale problem. Just a little thing you probably heard of is the decision to make the students stay in dorms corresponding to the gender assigned at birth and not letting them choose. That's pretty hostile, right? And they're definitely feeling that, right? These master's students are a wonderful cohort, though, and they actually did something that, as a scientist, I have to approve of. They collected data. They did opinion surveys. They found out how many faculty and how many students wanted a soccer stadium on the campus. Turns out, very few, almost none. Rounding error, unified opposition, right? So I give them credit for that. And they can also see through something like a photo that's taken of me talking to the master's students in the woods that the university wants to destroy. It seems a little bit off-brand. It seems a little bit distasteful to do that, right? And they did a semester-long project looking at the effects of alternative plans for the woods and came up with a lot of interesting ideas. On the other hand, what we have from the administration is called anecdata. Anecdotes. I heard someone say that UNCA was still underwater and therefore we don't want to go to school there. So let's blame our problems with enrollment on an act of God, force majeure, Helene. It's convenient. Now, I'm not saying it's not a big part of the reason, but is it based on genuine survey data, or is it something that someone heard at an open house that now gets repeated, and then if it's spoken by members of the administration, it is if it were engraved on stone tablets, and that's the truth, which will be held forevermore, right? That's anecdata, where something is asserted to be rigorously verified when it's really just hearsay. Okay. The faculty, we're keeping our heads down. Because I got to tell you, it's not the same job that I signed up for those many years ago, right? We don't really know what academic freedom means anymore. Right? We're not sure if academia is the right choice. I know, don't be sorry for me. You can just smell the privilege from over there. So I am not complaining about myself because I did fine. I'm close to retirement. It's been a wonderful ride. I have wonderful students. But the newer faculty, the faculty that are looking at another 10 or 20 years, that's where there is some misgiving. This is a state where academic freedom means there's now bots crawling over our curriculum software looking for troublesome words like diversity, even when the diversity in question, in my case, is plant diversity, or the professor at Wilmington who was studying squirrel diversity and he got flagged for using the D word, right? So there's, things are changing in ways that I never thought we would see. Of course, we have not had raises. Well, I don't know, that was pre-COVID. That's the before times, right? I mean, that was about it. Even then, they were halting and paltry, and now we have our health insurance going up because the state's got to pay for those Medicaid cuts somehow, and that comes out of all state employees. Maybe you too, right? And of course, inflation is taking its toll, right? Without raises, then your standard of living. I will tell you that the last 4 hires in the biology department have gone to faculty that can take the low salary because they have a well-compensated spouse who works from home on a very tech-heavy kind of project and can do that. Those are the people. We need 2 incomes, and then they might live in Alexander, and they might live out towards Brevard. They will not live near I. I'm bringing up the question that, there's 2 things that have gone on that disturb me. It's this idea of saying, well, I'm sorry, your neighborhood, which is full of trees, is going to lose its trees. My neighborhood lost its trees a long time ago, so I'm not going to stick up for you. This thought of like pulling yourself up by tearing someone down. I strongly object to that. Same thing happens at the university. I have some privilege of longevity, meaning I'll be feeding flowers sooner than the rest of you, but still, right, nonetheless, I got here at a time when I can buy a spec house for $190,000 with an extra lot in North Asheville, and people that came much later say, no, not for me. 2 other houses built side by side, they're going for $600,000 and $700,000. One of them went for rent. I was asked by the neighbor, would you post this on the faculty forum? Why bother? None of us can afford to rent that, right? So there's that thing within the university, like you're doing pretty well for yourself, so don't go complaining to me, right? Okay, let's talk about the land in question there. And I believe I have my facts straight, looking at Elizabeth. It was a bond issue in 1960 that bought that land for the university, and it was a county bond issue, $60,000. So I think you have some skin in the game. I think you have some expectations of the university, right? And then unlike the city and county, you all take responsibility for your open spaces, your parks, greenways, et cetera. You know, there is staffing that's committed to that. The university has never done that. Never had the budget to just keep close to the quad, pick up the cigarette butts or, trim the petunias, and that was about it. So there's been a lot of neglect. And it's not, the university just never had the budget. So it's filled those gaps, right? So now we have invasive species, and after Helene, we have hazard trees. And I'd like to see whatever happens for that to be addressed. So this is a consequence of our longstanding history of stagnant state appropriations. They have not increased, and then we are not allowed to raise tuition. You guys cover your budget, perhaps by raising taxes. The university does not have that option. They are given a budget and told how much tuition, and that has to zero out every year, right? So this neglect of the system for UNCA is analogous to the neglect of the UNCA for the urban forest, right? This is straight out of a page in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual. It's called Munchausen by proxy. My baby's drowning, I want some attention, all right? Is that 10? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, David. You can leave the rest of your remarks if you would like with the county manager or email them to us.
Okay. Sure.
Thank you. We appreciate it. All right, I think the other folks that signed up under UNC Asheville yielded your time, but I'm going to call your name just to make sure. Ann Walsh and Sandy Nibbs. Okay, you did not, that's fine. And just state your name again when you come forward.
I'm Ann Walsh.
Ann
And I'm
Walsh.
actually speaking from what my neighbor Woody Davis, who's busy with a plumbing problem, couldn't get here tonight.
Thanks, Ann.
I'm in the neighborhood with him though. So we're here again to talk about UNCA's recently revived proposal to destroy the 45-acre forest in Asheville's Five Points neighborhood to build a privately owned 5,000-seat soccer stadium. This is Woody speaking. I want to thank Chairperson Edwards for her recent remarks to the Asheville Watchdog, decrying the lack of transparency both in the process surrounding the proposal so far and in the recently announced Millennial Campus Committee. As that article noted, a transparent community dialogue was the Commission's primary request when you wrote the university's administration last August, just after they paused the project in the face of overwhelming public opposition. The problem then, as now, is that the administration appears to be unwilling to be transparent, collaborative, or even straightforwardly honest with any stakeholder that doesn't stand to benefit financially from the project. That includes students, faculty, staff, alumni, neighbors, elected officials, and even the UNC system's own board of governors, many of whom expressed shock at how underdeveloped the university proposal was and how little effort they had made to secure community buy-in when the project was first presented last year. While we believe that the pushback from this commission, along with that from the Board of Governors and Asheville City's Council, were important factors in forcing the administration to pause the project last August, the Millennial Campus Committee, as announced, shows that the administration has opted not to learn any lessons from that outcome. Instead, the 14-person committee, ostensibly created to address public concerns, is stacked with insiders, including 9 current or former UNCA trustees, most of whom already voted to approve the stadium project in a closed meeting last summer, and 2 current or former members of the administration. This does not strike us as good faith effort to hear the community's concerns or seriously consider alternatives. We are tired of UNCA treating the people it serves as though their thoughts, desires, and well-being are irrelevant. And we are sick of the administration acting like the community's outreach is just an irritating hurdle to be cleared on the way to realizing their commercial real estate schemes rather than an integral part of the process. UNCA is a public university funded by our taxes. The land in question was purchased with a public bond, again, paid for by the people living here. That the university thinks it's appropriate to treat the public resources under its care as nothing more than commercial real estate development opportunities against the opposition of the very community that created and supported the school over the years remains shocking. Unfortunately, given the administration's behavior over the last year, the fact that this committee appears to be nothing more. Thank you.
Thank you, and you can leave your remarks or email them as stated. Sandy Neves, you gave up, okay. I wasn't sure who had signed up that gave up their time, so I just wanted to call names just to be sure. And Micah San, did you relinquish? Okay. And I hope I got that right. You can correct me if I misspoke.
My name's Micah Sun. Have you heard of King Erisictheon? Have you heard the story of King Erisictheon, the greedy king who could never have enough, the king who sold his daughter into servitude? King Erisictheon, who needed more land, who wanted to build out ballroom wings on the side of his estate, possibly gilded, who wanted to build extra dorms for students who may or may not come, the king who cut down all the forests to make his estate great, the king who finally wanted the trees in the center of the city. He wanted the trees in the sacred grove of the goddess, and he sent his chief engineer to go and cut them down to build an extension onto his estate, onto his palace. King Erisictheon, have you heard of King Erisictheon, who was cursed when these trees were cut? Against the cries of the people, this place where children would go to play, place where prayers were made, the sacred grove of the goddess, who cut the trees of the sacred grove, who cut the heart of living Christ who cut this place down against the cries of the people. Have you heard of King Erisichthon and how he was cursed with eternal, endless hunger for that act? Cursed for eternal hunger. And he went back to his palace, and he was so hungry he began to eat all the food in that place. And before long, he began to eat all the food from the lands around him. And that was not enough, and he ate his palace. And then, still hungry, he called his children to him, and he began to consume them, starting with just the digit of his daughters, one digit, and then the whole body. And he consumed the bodies of his son in his ravenous, cursed hunger. And he consumed the walls of his palace. And still hungry, he began to consume himself. Started with the toes, and he ate his feet, and he ate his hands, and he ate his whole body. Have you heard of King Erisichthon, the king cursed with eternal hunger, the one who cut the last grove of the goddess down from the center of the city? Have you heard of King Erisichthon? Have you heard?
Thank you, Micah. Are there any other members of tonight's audience who wish to speak and did not sign up? All right, thank you all very much. All right, do we have any good news this evening? No, we have a manager's report, though. Avril.
Thank you, ma'am. I'd like to call Ryan Cole and Lacey Hoyle. We'll present a quick debrief on winter storm, I want to keep saying hurricane, Winter Storm Fern and Code Purple sheltering.
Good evening. So real quick, we're just going to go through a little bit of what we experienced during Fern, or leading up to Fern. Let me say that. The big issue is, and you'll see, and I know it might be a little bit difficult to see, but the first weather forecast that we had was from January 20th. It started talking about the ice. And you'll see on this one where the snow and ice line is on the very first one there on the bottom of January 21st. And then as we went on into the evening of January 21st, that changed again. And then January 22nd changed again. And so it kept coming in with more ice. The first time that we started seeing significant issues with ice coming in was on January the 22nd. And you'll see the purple that's highlighted over on the bottom area there. And so that was very concerning because that was over a half inch of ice. Here in western North Carolina, we experience sometimes a quarter inch of ice. That is when we start losing power lines and trees. Half inch of ice, we're definitely going to start losing some of that, and an inch of ice can be catastrophic. One of the things that, as I started looking into some of this information, 1 inch of ice, 300 feet, weighs 3,000 pounds. If you look at most power poles where they're stretching power lines across, you're carrying about 5 lines across through that. So you're looking at about 15,000 pounds that's on one stretch in between 2 poles. So that's a significant weight if we would have had what was predicted there. This continued to get worse. As you see, the more purple on here, as that continued on with looking at January 24th, we were seeing a lot of areas that was getting into the the entire county was almost half to 3/4 inch predicted, and we're getting into 1 inch. One of the areas that we were looking at predominantly was going from Royal Pines area in Skyland all the way up to Broad River. So basically what that is going up the escarpment area, and just think of the Continental Divide where it hits, and it was going into the backside of those ridges, which is exactly where Helene did some of the most significant damages over there. So this was very concerning for all of us as we continued on. With that being understood, we had a couple of community briefings where we wanted to make sure that residents were aware of what we were being faced with and what was coming in. and make sure that they were getting prepared for this event, because this was a very concerning event for us. The storm it still primarily impacted the south and eastern parts of the county, and I think we had more of an impact with ice on the southern part, and that fell into Henderson and Transylvania counties. And most of that, and I think many of you are probably seeing on the news, that a lot of that was on the roadways. It was not up in the trees and on the power lines, which is very abnormal for us. I will tell you, while we were watching the storm in the EOC, we did look at the temperature as it was 20 degrees here in Asheville. It was 45 degrees on Mount Mitchell. And so we had some very significant abnormalities of temperatures and what was happening. We were watching the storm as it came in. It was loading in Chattanooga, and as it came up, it would hit the mountains in Bryson City. It would go around and come into Henderson and Transylvania counties, and then up it was going into Mitchell and Avery counties. And Mitchell had the same icing just like what was down in Henderson County. So we have to be very thankful for our mountains and what they do for us sometimes and how they affect that. We didn't have as much of an impact on our northern and western parts of the county. On Sunday, I was on 191. It was 35 degrees. I got a picture, a text message from Barnardsville where it was 50 degrees at the same time. So this was a very interesting event whenever it comes to weather. As we look through this, some of the preparedness improvements that we had, and everyone's familiar with the preparedness plan and what we're working through with that, and it significantly benefited us during this activation. It assisted us with our ESC activation and our staffing plan that we were able to utilize, our shelter activation and the setup and the staffing for that, our partner coordination and communication. I've had several people contact me about how well they were pleased with the communication that we had throughout the event with our situation reports and our ongoing calls for both events, this past weekend and the weekend before. We were able to use logistic ordering with our web EOC, even though it's not fully functioning yet. Our staff that's been training on web EOC put it into place, and they're still working through that, and it helped them identify some of the things that were working well and some things that we need to improve, which also helped us with our financial tracking as well in web EOC, so they're able to maintain that and keep that going. And we even brought in finance staff to make sure that everything was working well there. The feeding plan that we had set up, we had contractors that was set up and ready to go. They brought in and was able to feed our staff to make sure that all of our staff that was had that going on as well. As the shelters, we had a feeding plan for the shelters and the staff for that as well. The pre-position contracts was very beneficial to us because we were able to bring in generators, and we did something that I've never done and I don't believe has ever been done here in Buncombe County, where we actually worked with Duke Energy, and we supplied power directly to the transformer and took it off the grid. So we were able to power up the entire building. So we did that with the YMCA and Irwin High School, and utilizing multiple generators to do the Irwin High School, one generator at the YMCA, and they actually tapped into the side of the box and was able to go in and supply that, which was amazing. The only downside of that is we had to run the generator from the time we hooked it up throughout, whether we lost power or not. The shelter supplies and inventory was very fortunate that we had what we did to be able to allow us to set up the shelters and have the equipment ready in partnership with Red Cross and the shelter supplies and equipment that we had. Some of the gaps that we identified in this is having the dedicated county shelter facility. Generators at schools is something that we are trying to work towards, and I'll talk a little bit more about some of the gaps here in a minute as well. And having a warehouse with all of our supplies. We've got some supplies that's on tractor and trailers. It's located at the training center, and so we're having to offload that stuff with forklifts put it on other trailers that we can move around, and so that becomes cumbersome whenever we're doing that. Weather stations, this is an HMGP project. Having that situational awareness, knowing what the temperatures are on top of our peaks and in the valleys. We've requested 40 weather stations, and so that would definitely have benefited us during this and knowing what's going on throughout the entire county. Having EOC facilities, equipment, and housing for staff when we have an EOC opening, obviously that's something that's very important as we move forward. And having the Web EOC fully functioning, which is through training and continued developing that, that's our plan is to have that up by June. We established 3 shelters and was set up. The HHS staff did a phenomenal job in staffing these shelters and going in and working through that. Irwin High School had a capacity of 100 people if we had to accommodate that. The YMCA had a capacity of 50 people, and Hearts with Hands had a capacity of 90. Both Irwin and YMCA, or all 3, opened on January 24th. The Irwin and YMCA closed on the 26th, and we consolidated 2 Hearts with Hands in anticipation of school opening and being able to get the YMCA back to normal operations. The highest total occupancy that we had overall with all the shelters was 83 people during the duration of that. And you'll see some of the cots that were set up at the top, and this is one of the generators down at the bottom that was supplying Irwin High School. And you can see all the wires that was going through to supply multiple transformers there. The staffing that HHS had for the shelters was over 105 people. This included shelter managers, social workers, economic services, nurses, additional staffing. Buncombe County Sheriff's Office assisted us with security, having 4 deputies at each site, and overhead staff. One of the things that I want you to keep in mind is we had no knowledge whether once this storm come in, if we would have gotten what was predicted, then we wouldn't have the ability to travel, move people back and forth. So everybody came in to work prepared for 72 hours of staying at these facilities, and most of them stayed at the facilities. Even whenever it started lighting, we didn't have as much impact as we thought. If you notice the picture on the right, this is something we purchased ram board and put that down, and we covered 16,000 square feet of gymnasium flooring to protect those floors to make sure that we had no damage there, that the staff went in and put that down and pulled it up. Real quickly, I just want to go through and talk through the EOC objectives. Anytime that we stand up an EOC, we have objectives that we have in there, and this is some of the things that we have that we're overall thinking of and working through. Provide for health and safety of the impacted population and responders for the duration of the incident. Provide assistance to the 911 center with dispatching lower priority calls and notifying utility companies as needed. As we get a lot of calls coming in for trees down and that kind of stuff, then we work with the utility companies and try to take that strain off of them. Maintain an overall situational awareness of incidents across the county and provide updates to county leadership and external partners through the duration of the incident. Coordinate with external partners to provide resources to the community and emergency responders throughout the duration of the incident, and prepare a demobilization plan for operations in the shelter. Anytime we stand something up, we've got to figure out how we're going to demobilize it and take it back down. Some of the continued improvements that we talked about in the gaps is we'll go through those real quick. Reynolds High School shelter, the generator, it's in the design phase right now. And so currently we're working on trying to get that in place. As far as the other high school generators, we have an HMGP project that is outstanding to be able to put a generator at all high schools. And so one of the things you might ask is why the high schools? Gymnasiums, because we have the gymnasium, we also have cafeteria there at the high school if we had to do feeding, but it also has showers in each one of them, and that's very important that we have that. Web EOC for partnering agency, again, the training and full implementation by July 1, we're working through that to be able to get that set up. We have an HMGP project for 40 weather stations. That would give us, weather stations at our 18 tower sites that's up on top of the ridges, and then the other ones down in the valleys. So we're able to monitor not just rainfall, but temperatures and everything throughout the entire county on the ridges and the valleys. Heavy equipment was also HMGP request. This would have this would allow us, if we have to start moving trees and getting into a community, especially when we have if we had a lot of ice with trees down, then that would have helped us get in there. Some of you might remember back in, I believe it was 2002, it took us about 2 days to cut into Broad River because we had an ice storm that went through Broad River that took down trees, and it took about 2 days to cut into NC number 9 just to have one pathway to go through there. The county shelter facility, this is also in our CIP. This is very important looking at this project because then we're not held to when we have to open a school, whether or not we have to get something back in business or anything of that nature. It allows us to make sure that we have something in place to where that it's managed by the county, and we can make sure that we can keep it open as long as we need to. The Emergency Operations Center and Warehouse, which is also in the CIP, this will be extremely beneficial down the road by having modernized equipment and having all the things that we need to be able to manage the incident, and having places where that we can sleep people in the EOC, and also having a warehouse where we can store this equipment and these supplies and be able to get out. The shelter plan, which is also in progress, to work through that, utilizing these schools, identifying what our capabilities, our opportunities, and are to be able to ensure adequate sheltering. The emergency operation plan update, we're in progress with that with all the ESFs. We already saw with this incident how a lot of that training and the updates that people are working in their ESFs have assisted by familiarizing everyone with the emergency operation plan, and we're continuing to work through that. As well as the disaster staffing plan, we are in phase 1 of that now. We utilize that. During this disaster, we are moving towards phase 2 by 2027, which means every staff member will have an assigned role during a disaster. Questions?
Well, first of all, Ron, thank you and everyone, all of staff, for all the tremendous work that y'all did during that storm, and for the updates on where we are with preparation. And with the hazard mitigation, with those projects that we're applying for those funds, do you have any sense of where we are in that process?
So I was actually working with our contractor, Tetra Tech, today on some of those, and we are still in line with North Carolina Emergency Management of getting those submitted. We had to do some modifications, and anytime that you go through, they do a peer review and different things, and so we're back in the modification. We're hoping to have all of that done by the middle of February. I don't know what the timeline is for North Carolina Emergency Management to do those reviews and provide feedback, final feedback, and when that funding will be. I will tell you, I have talked with them on one of my big concerns is the generators at the schools, and they're wanting to move forward on that as quickly as possible once they get everything done, to hopefully have some shelters going into schools, some generators going into schools this calendar year.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ryan?
I've got one. Again, thanks, Ryan, and your whole team. You mentioned an inch of ice would have been catastrophic. What's kind of roughly the minimum amount of ice we would need for power lines to fall on their own, as opposed to something falling on the power line itself?
So basically, we look at that as a 1/4 inch of ice is when Duke starts getting really concerned, because if there's any weaknesses in that 1/4 inch of ice, we start seeing power lines or other lines fall. I mean, it could be cable lines, phone lines, anything of that nature. Then, once it goes up to a 1/2 inch, you're definitely going to have some failures. 1 inch would have, we would have had lines down all over. And so I will tell you, my father was a lineman. He was up in upstate New York during the ice storms several years ago, and they fell down like dominoes up there when they had 3/4 of an inch of ice. We are very fortunate here because we have a lot of guy wires. It's all flat, so we're hilly here, so we got guy wires that hold the lines up, and so that does help out. Whereas up there, once they started going, they just all went.
Pull each other down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Brian, thank you for this, and I want to thank all the staff who were there this weekend, working around the clock. I know that when we're in a state of emergency, folks want to be home with their families, and it speaks a lot to the commitment of our staff to go out and serve our community during those difficult times. I was just curious if you could give a recap of how many homes did lose power, and did we see folks who lost power able to get to the shelters?
So as we went through, I think we had a total of 1,700 that lost power during the events, and they were able to restore those very quickly. Duke Energy working with that. I don't believe we had anyone who came to the shelter that had lost power after they lost power. It was people that came to the shelter prior to losing power because they were concerned of being able to get out once something happened. So we had people there in advance. It was not necessarily the ones that whenever they lost power to be able to get them there. We did have several things in place to be able to transport people, including National Guard, actually for both weekends. And we had those to where that they could transport people in during the ice. And but we were fortunate to not have to do that because we didn't have the power outage impacts, and they were able to restore the ones that were out very quickly.
Ryan, thank you. And again, I'll echo thank you to all the staff who worked around the clock, not only with Winter Storm Fern, but also with the most recent weather. We really do appreciate it. And also just really want to highlight that each storm is an opportunity for us to improve our operations and also for us to see what those continued improvements are, particularly as we move forward through our budget season. So thank you for bringing those to our attention, Ryan.
Thank you. Lacey?
Good evening, Commissioners. I am here today. I want to just provide an update on Code Purple and winter shelter operations over the past 2 weekends. And before I really get into the thick of it, I want to start with some thank yous too. It's been challenging, but we have risen to the occasion, I think, as best we've been able. So I want to say thank you to County Emergency Management, and also I want to echo the thank you to county staff who have worked in shelters when those were open and who have also supported the coordination efforts with our homeless shelter providers to try to make sure folks were safe. County leadership as well has been extraordinarily helpful in trying to troubleshoot some of the challenges that we've encountered. I'm very grateful that Hearts with Hands allowed us to keep that shelter open 2 weekends ago while we worked with our homeless service providers to make sure that folks who were unhoused and who remained in that shelter had safe options to leave once we demobilized the shelter. I want to give a special shout out to HHS staff Nathan Green, who's been very helpful to me over the past 2 weeks as we've been communicating with Code Purple providers and trying to figure out solutions. City of Asheville's homeless strategy staff, their AFD Rest team, and City of Asheville management have also been very helpful in coordination and support of shelters in these conditions. We've had transport help from Mountain Mobility, from the AFD Rest team, from our community paramedics, and when ART has been able to operate, they have also been very helpful for our unhoused community. Certainly last but not least, perhaps most importantly of all, our homeless service providers have really stepped up. And so just as a reminder, those Code Purple and winter shelter providers are Homeward Bound's A-Hope facility, ABCCM's Transformation Village facility, the Salvation Army's Center of Hope, and Safe Shelter has operated a couple of different locations throughout the season. I also want to just make sure I mention Umoja Health, Wellness, and Justice Collective. They're not a Code Purple provider, but they've been very supportive throughout the season with warming needs on days when Code Purple shelters were not able to be open during the day. And I think, you know, as you mentioned, Chair Edwards, there's a lot of opportunity here. I think we have had a lot of success, even though it has been challenging over the past 2 weekends. We've sheltered large numbers of people in our unhoused community with very limited resources, and that is a huge success for us. It's also a huge need for us, but it's been, I'm very, very impressed and very grateful with what we've been able to do with the resources that we have. There's been a lot of quick coordination to keep shelters open, to coordinate with the county emergency shelter that was open 2 weekends ago, and to try to make sure that we have a plan with providers to keep folks indoors in the daytime when the conditions were not conducive to them leaving shelters. And then there's also been a lot of concerted effort with transport options for folks throughout the last couple of weeks, transporting both to Code Purple shelters and then also the effort to coordinate transportation from the county shelters back to those Code Purple options. So I just want to make sure I highlight that as I kind of get into what it's been like for us. I also want to start by just reminding us all of what the roles have been for Code Purple and winter sheltering this year. So the City of Asheville is the lead agency for the continuum of care, and as such, they have been leading the Code Purple and winter shelter coordination efforts this year. And they also contract with Code Purple and winter shelter providers. The continuum of care develops the Code Purple plan. That comes from the Code Purple work group, and that is who recommended winter sheltering for this year. And the continuum of care informs the city of provider responses to the needs that are outlined in that plan. Partners respond to Code Purple and winter shelter requests for proposals with their proposed level of services. They provide those services under contract with and at the direction of the city. And then Buncombe County enters into interlocal agreement with the city to partially fund Code Purple. You've seen this from me before, but I wanted to just kind of refresh our memories on the funding and the structure for Code Purple this year. So we had $303,000 to work with. City and county both contributed $50,000 in a partnership match. The City of Asheville also had some remaining ARPA funding, and Mission HCA contributed for the first time ever to the Code Purple effort this year. We're very grateful for that as well. The funding structure that was worked out in contracts was that there would be a per diem rate paid to providers based on bed utilization. And one of the new things that we've had for the effort this year is an operations coordinator to help coordinating the efforts across all of the shelters. And for Code Purple, part of that position was covered with the Code Purple funding. Code Purple shelter, as you probably know, is emergency nighttime shelter when the Code Purple parameters are met. So those parameters are 32 degrees or below with the wind chill, or between 33 and 40 degrees with forecasted precipitation, or in other extreme weather events as may be applicable. New this year, we had more than one provider providing Code Purple shelter, and we have had that operations coordinator in place, as I mentioned. Just as a reminder, these are our Code Purple providers and our bed capacity for this year. So ABCCM Transformation Village has been operating 35 beds for women and women with children. The Salvation Army has had 16 beds for men, and Homeward Bound's A Hope facility has had 20 beds for couples and people with pets. There has been work ongoing since the season started to identify some additional capacity, particularly for men. We knew that we needed more beds for men this year. And so immediately after Winter Storm Fern, we were able to open some limited overflow capacity operated by Safe Shelter at the First Presbyterian Church. So they added 20 beds That was in the works before Winter Storm Fern, but we weren't able to get it online until right afterward. And those beds were really aimed at men, but we were able to accommodate some other populations at times as well. And then for Winter Storm Gianna last weekend, that overflow capacity was transferred to Trinity United Methodist Church. And they were operating around 50 beds at that facility this weekend. These Code Purple providers, most of them have exceeded their bed capacity on a regular basis, particularly as we got into January. It's been the coldest part of the season so far. And that does include our overflow capacity as well. So that's something we've been trying to problem solve for a while now and are continuing to work on. Total bed stays at the above locations, January 1st through January 19th was 500 stays. That's not unique stays, that's just total stays, but we average that out to be about 45 people per night. And most of those folks are men who are in need of beds. We also, this year, as I mentioned, had nightly winter shelter. So that started November 1st and will go through March 30th. The funding for that has been the City of Asheville's CDBG DDRF funding in the amount of $250,000. And that they have offered a flat rate which covered the needs for winter shelter as well as a portion of those operations coordinator costs. And the difference between this and the Code Purple shelters is that these shelters are open every night regardless of whether those Code Purple parameters are met. So Safe Shelter has operated 2 locations for this nightly winter shelter. At 91 New Lester Highway, the Salvation Army offered up that space for men. So there have been 40 beds there that Safe Shelter has been operating. And they've also been operating 10 additional beds for women nightly at their location where the rest of their operations are centered. So 50 total nightly winter shelter beds. These shelters have also been regularly exceeding their bed capacity, even on nights when Code Purple is not called. And so total bed stays for these 2 facilities, January 1st through January 11th, is 745 stays. That averages out to about 68 people per night. And most of the overage there, I think, has been at that men's facility. As we moved into our 2 winter storms, there was a lot of coordination work happening to try to plan for how we might support our unhoused community in those very extreme weather conditions. During Winter Storm Fern, some of our shelters were able to stay open all day long. ABCCM's Transformation Village was able to remain open during daytime hours. Safe Shelter's women's shelter was able to remain open during daytime hours. The Salvation Army was able to extend their hours, but were not able to keep people all day. And A-Hope and Safe Shelter's men locations were not able to remain open and extend their hours. So we were looking at lots of folks in the daytime who needed support for warming. And so I'm very grateful that the county did have those shelters open because they were really instrumental in offering that space for folks to have a warming option during the day while Code Purple was not operational. For Winter Storm Gianna, we knew that we were going to be facing kind of the same difficulty, and many more conversations occurred, and as a result of those conversations, all shelter providers determined that they would remain open during daytime hours, Saturday and Sunday, with support from city and county staff for this, or city and county for the staff that were working those shelters during those daytime hours. I think as we move forward, there are lots of things for us to consider, potential considerations, particularly for the Code Purple work group, which I'm part of as part of the COC, is what might it look like for us to expand nightly winter shelter hours and number of beds, establishing parameters that might trigger some expanded daytime hours for Code Purple, establishing parameters that would trigger expanded hours just kind of in general, funding and costs with any parameter expansions that we might need to consider, and then provider ability to respond to requests to expand hours. The process, as we come up with, I would say, improvements to our plan for sheltering our unhoused community in the winter months, there are, of course, budget considerations for both the city and the county, potential interlocal agreement modifications for this season for the city and the county. The city may need to modify their Code Purple contracts with providers. And of course, if there are any modifications, those need to be authorized by the city of Asheville as the contract holder. I just want to say, before I ask for any questions, that all of these considerations are coming about because we are seeing a huge level of need this year. I think more than any of us were really anticipating. And I think this winter weather has really brought that to the forefront. Providers are seeing folks that don't normally come in for shelter in the past couple of weeks who are seeking assistance because it has just been so brutally cold for the past 2 weeks. So it's informative for us. It gives us a lot of opportunity to plan, but I want to also just stress that providers have been working very hard. County staff have been working very hard to try to come up with solutions for these folks. And with that, I would welcome any questions that you all may have for me.
Thank you, Lacey. I think your presentation certainly highlights the importance of partnerships and collaborations, and that no singular organization across our county can do this work alone. So thank you for that. I am curious, from your service on the COC, will some of these considerations be brought forward at upcoming meetings and, asking you to keep coming back to us after those board meetings to keep us updated on what the future might look like, particularly for Code Purple? But I do think you're absolutely right. We have had an abnormally brutal winter that has really shown the growing demand and the need that we have across our community.
Yes, absolutely. So the Code Purple Work Group meets weekly to talk about how operations are going, what the need is looking like. We've already talked about some of the considerations that I identified even just today. And the board has been receiving regular updates at every meeting about how Code Purple has been going. Our next board meeting is next week, and I expect that we'll be talking quite a bit about how operations have looked for the past 2 weeks in particular, and what support is still needed.
Lacey, thank you so much. I know you must be tired after 2 weekends of a lot of stress and work to keep people sheltered. And it's just so much thanks to our partners that really bent over backwards to make sure that folks had a warm place to be. My question was about funding for Code Purple shelters. So we've $303,000 for 78 beds. When we have a winter like this where we're having an abnormally large number of really cold evenings, does that $303,000 cover a certain number of nights? Are we going to get to a point where the money we have set aside for Code Purple is going to run out? I mean, how does that work?
Well, so the providers are reimbursed per bed, per utilization. And their providers are also aware, they are partners in this funding as well. So I hope that we're not going to run out, because I think that providers have been planning to absorb costs as well and have been absorbing costs so that they can be good stewards of the funding that's been provided to them. I think the larger issue really is just figuring out staffing and how to support staff, particularly in winter weather when staff who may be working those shelters can't get there. So I think that some of those things are in my mind, more worrisome than the potential of running out of funding this season. That being said, I think that there is a huge need for continuing budget considerations and what it may need to look like for the future, since we are seeing more people than I think any of us expected to see.
Thank you. And look forward to receiving further recommendations on how we can be better prepared and potentially add more beds for the nightly shelters throughout the winter.
Thank you. Are there other questions for Lacey? You have one.
No, I just have a comment.
Go for it.
You know, the concern I have in being starting my 10th year on the commission is how I've seen this escalate as time goes on. And I want to commend our staff and all of you for the work that you do. But fellow commissioners, it's time now that we start thinking about what can we do going forward to prevent this, or at least lower the numbers that we're seeing. Because we're spending our taxpayers' dollars wisely? Because we need to look at solving the problems. And I feel that we're perpetuating it. Even though we're helping it, we've got to help these people. But I think we have a responsibility as commissioners or as elected officials to really look at this and to do something to solve the problem. And it's not going to be done overnight. I'll be the first to say no. But we've got to get to a point, because it hurts me when I ride around the city and go on Tunnel Road in some of the places and see people walking with all their belongings on their back or pushing buggies from Ingalls or wherever, you know. But we shouldn't have that in America today. And that's the concern I have. And I want to see us use our taxpayers' money more wisely than this and prepare. We need to solve the problem, because we can't continue to throw millions of dollars at this and not solve the problem. You know, I don't mind spending the money if we can see a light at the end of the tunnel. And we've got to do something. We can't leave these people out in the cold or even in the year-round, really, the way it's ending up. But I think we've got to start thinking, you know, proactive. We got to solve this problem.
I think you make a really excellent point, Commissioner Whitesides, and there were several of us was it the end of 2023? We sat alongside City Council and heard the myriad of recommendations that came forward on how to address our unhoused challenges across the city and the county. And, you know, it looks like there's some updates on progress on implementation on that, but I do think that there's some really outstanding big projects that were listed throughout that entire recommendation that we need to really lift those conversations back up in terms of how we're going to address. And so it could potentially be helpful to have an update in the coming weeks on where we are in implementing those recommendations. I see a lot of heads nodding. I see some consensus here.
I very much look forward to that. I appreciate your work and your update and the comprehensive view that you're offering here. I do think that your involvement, probably in one committee more than you probably have time for, is really helpful, because it's helping us connect the dots between what we're viewing as a problem, particularly right now, for our unhoused neighbors, but also tackling the root causes and addressing the other issues. And it's kind of hard to see all of those things converging, but we are having the conversations around deeply affordable housing. How do we change people's economic circumstances? And that's the work and recommendations I'm really eager to see from the COC and our joint efforts with the city and all of our community partners, because this is, in fact, extremely important that we're making sure people stay alive, and then also having a path forward for how we're going to address the underlying issue that Commissioner Whitesides raised. I think gives me a lot of hope that people are doing that work. It's really just a matter of how much can we fit into any one meeting at a time, and making sure we keep that at the top of our list. So thank you.
I did pull that report up very quickly, and one of the system performance number 3 was sheltering. So potentially an update from the sheltering group specifically, because the team was formed to specifically move forward some options for a new low barrier shelter and evaluating what resources we already had. And so I am curious where we stand in that and what potential role, and I think it might speak to what Commissioner Whitesides was saying as well, is what is happening in that arena, and what do we really need to start looking at in order to not Band-Aid this problem every winter, but to really start addressing it. Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Lacey. We appreciate all of your work. And to you again, Ryan, thank you all. And to all the county staff who have been so instrumental in keeping our residents across Buncombe County warm and safe over the last couple of winter weather events. All right, we have a presentation this evening, and Commissioner Whitesides is going to present the Black Legacy Month proclamation. And Dr. No is joining us along with Sean Palmer, the YMI Executive Director. Thank you both for joining us this evening.
Good to see you. You know, it's an honor for me to read this proclamation this month because for being an African American and a product of the 60s when I was in college, I've seen so much going on today in our country that's trying to do away with the history of people who look like me. And we can't allow that to happen. And that's why I'm glad to see Buncombe County, along with our community, where it's the King breakfast or whatever, not falling into this same gutter, so to speak, that some parts of our country is falling in. Let me read the proclamation. I didn't come here to editorialize, so to read the proclamation. Black Legacy Month, February 26th. February 2026. Whereas in 1926, during the middle of the Harlem Renaissance in America, a movement where artists embraced pride in black life and identity, awareness grew of the inequities and discrimination black Americans were experiencing. And whereas through their work, Carter G. Woodson and Minister Jess E. Moreland laid the foundation of Black History Month with the celebration of Negro History Week to document achievements of black Americans and highlight black representation in important policy decisions. And whereas in 1976, President Gerald Ford made Black History Month a national observance, declaring that in celebration of Black History Month, we can take satisfaction from the recent progress in the realization of the ideals envisioned by our founding fathers. But even more than this, we can seize the opportunity to honor and too often neglected accomplishments of black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history. And whereas the Allen School, founded in 1887 in Asheville, offered basic education classes for girls, boys, and adults, later becoming a boarding school for girls that produced nationally and internationally recognized women, including singer-songwriter Nina Simone and Dr. Christine Darden, one of the first black female aerospace engineers for NASA. And whereas the Young Men's Institute, now called the YMI Culture Center, is one of the oldest black cultural centers in the United States, founded in 1892, the YMI offered community spaces including kindergartens, pharmacies, doctor's office, and a public library for black people. And whereas since February 2015, the local Christine Avery Learning Center ensures marginalized communities are enhanced by equipping, empowering, and engaging the next generation of social conscious leaders, unwavering, expanding access to high-quality early learning, fostering a community that serves as a trusted anchor for families, and whereas Buncombe County has furthered its commitment to access through inclusive, accessible, authentic engagements when developing and implementing programs, plans, or policy to reach all community members, and whereas Buncombe County has furthered its commitment to access through inclusive, accessible, authentic engagement when developing and implementing programs, plans, or policy, and whereas the Black Legacy Month, we live in this Black Legacy Month, we lift up the legacy of education and in entrepreneurship within the Black community by recognizing those who work every day for its advancement. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners hereby resolves and declares February 26, 2026 as Black Legacy Month, a time to celebrate the rich and diverse cultures of Black people, to raise awareness about our shared history, and to shed light on the invaluable contributions pioneered by Black communities locally and throughout the nation. This third day of February 2026, and it's signed Amanda Edwards, Chair, Buncombe County Board of Commissioners. Good. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Whiteside. Can I just, I know that we have not clapped. Can we just give it a round of applause? When I look around the room, I already see living Black history in the presence of Buncombe County. And I think just hearing from Brother Whiteside or looking at my sister Avril, who is all the way from the coastal region, whose cousins told me to tell you hello. I am surrounded by history in the making. I am surrounded by legacy. And I do bring you greetings from the oldest Black culture center in America. Not one of the oldest, but the oldest. How do I know? Because the Mellon Foundation does all the research and told us to take they told us to take out the idea that we were one of the oldest. They could not find another older than us. There is a reason that I think that we ought to be proud of that legacy, because here in Asheville, here in Buncombe County, we have been creating spaces for African Americans. We have been fighting and living alongside of each other. We have been progressing. We have been trying to do the work. We have been educating the sons and daughters of enslaved Africans. We have been moving even sometimes as we fail to live up to our own vision and values. But today is a new day. Today is the dawn of a centennial celebration where we can count ourselves lucky to stand in the realm of Nina Simone, our Brother Whiteside, our Sister Avril, or the mayor, former Mayor Bellamy. We are so very proud to live in a place that does not forget all of its history, that brings it all into the room, that acknowledges that the buildings that we stand in were once built by hands we cannot name, of people who we cannot name, but we still proclaim them worthy of recognition. Today is a good day in Black America. It is not as bad as we may think. It is a day for continued celebration, continued commitment, and regardless of what some say, Black history has nutritional value for every person who claims America as its home. It has nutritional value internationally as we learn the struggles and not to repeat the cycles that we have had before. It has value as we reclaim our heritages, our histories, and our hopes from King to Jackson to Brother Ferguson. We have a lot to be proud of. And today, on behalf of your cultural center, the one that I hope that you will visit all month long when you come to see all the different things that we are up to, that you will visit and you will remember that you live in a place that values all people. Thank you.
well, we have some guests not staying for the public hearing. We'll go ahead and call up Jeremiah Leroy, who is going to discuss the Commercial Property Assessed Capital Expenditure, otherwise known as the CPACE program.
I'm going to struggle to follow that, but I'm going to seem really boring by comparison. However, thank you. It's good to be here again tonight. As we've discussed before, CPACE, or Commercial Property Assessed Capital Expenditure, is a state-run and a state-administered program that enables private property owners to make upgrades to their properties for things like energy efficiency and renewable energy. And the legislation requires that I come talk to you guys about this several times. So that's where I'm going to stop in explaining what CPACE is, because we've talked about this on a number of occasions. I did want, as a point of information to the board, we'll have the public hearing tonight, and then the board can vote on the resolution. I did want you to know that staff has taken sort of a proactive approach, should the board choose to adopt the resolution tonight, to start to get the word out to our community about CPACE and the potential benefits. In fact, just this morning, sustainability staff met with our economic development business response work group. I'm going to get that right, totally by myself this time. And we are also planning a potential sort of community educational event in collaboration with the city and in collaboration with the EDP&C, the state administrator, hopefully late March or early April, when it's maybe slightly warmer than this. So I did just want to make you aware that we have sort of been proactively getting out there to, sort of figure out the best ways to let our community know that this is a potential option for them. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Outside of that, we can simply move forward with the public meeting, and the board can take their vote on the resolution.
Commissioners, are there any questions for Jeremiah before we open the public hearing?
I guess I'd just make the comment, kind of in response to your comment, Jeremiah, that, yeah, this is I think a hugely beneficial program that could be used in a lot of different ways that we probably can't even think of ourselves. So if there's any sort of public community engagement or FAQ or some sort, I would encourage you and our CAPE team to, try to figure out some ways to get the word out about it, and maybe through some case studies or something.
Absolutely.
Something like that, yeah. Full support.
Any other questions or comments? All right. There being none, I will open the public hearing at 6:19 p.m. And we do have one person, Amy Kelly, who has signed up to speak. Come on up to the podium, Amy, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Amy Kelly. I'm one of the owners of a company called Hatteras Sky. I'm actually here with 2 of my colleagues, Jason and Josh, tonight. We are the owners of the Radical Hotel, Zelda Dearest, Phil Mechanic Studios, Rad Rendezvous, and a few properties downtown. I just want to say thank you for your leadership on this, and I know it hasn't passed yet, but I just want to share with you how valuable it is to us and to our community, in addition to the environmental impacts, which have been the benefit of the CPACE program, nationwide for, since its inception. This has a unique benefit to people in this community because of the potential it has to assist with recovery and also feasibility. When costs are high, it's very difficult to do certain things, and this helps with that. It also has the added benefit of assisting with rehabs of historic buildings, of which there's a generous inventory in Asheville, and preserving those buildings, I think, is in a lot of people's interests, including ours as a company. I also, as a second point, would like to let you know that this is not just an abstract policy idea for our company. This is a lifeline. We were hit directly by Helene in 2 of our buildings. We have sustained very significant damage, and we have identified opportunities to use this program to help us recover. And we also have identified another opportunity to use it for a new project, and I know this is also aimed at, of course, just additional, development, especially of historic buildings. I know other people are looking at this as well. We had an event at the Radical where we educated people about this already, and it was well attended by folks that you have heard of many of whom are victims of Helene. And so I just want to let you know there is interest in this community. It's not just some abstract policy idea. And finally, I just wanted to offer my assistance. I've been in the effort of recovery for now 15 months. I serve on the city's Economic Recovery Board. I'm on the Chamber Board, one of the founders of Unified RAD. I'm on the TDA board, as you know. I don't speak on behalf of those boards here, but those are very good, avenues for spreading the word about this. And I personally just wanted to offer to you, I understand this program very well because I'm deeply in it, and I'm happy to assist with this aspect of recovery in addition to all the others. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Is there anyone who did not sign up but who would like to speak on the public hearing? All right, we will close the public hearing at 6:22. All right, commissioners, are there any further questions before calling for a motion to approve the resolution?
I'd like to, you have a question? Okay.
Go ahead and say something before Commissioner Song
Okay, well,
makes the motion.
I was just going to, again, just sing the praises of this and just state how grateful we are to the North Carolina General Assembly for passing this enabling legislation. This, I'm so thrilled about this. It's going to help lower energy bills. It's going to lower our energy demand. It's going to lower pollution, lower our carbon footprint. And it's going to create, these are the types of tools that we can put into the public realm that businesses can utilize to recover after Helene and also just make their business more profitable. The fact that, as Amy pointed out, businesses can use this to restore historic buildings, that helps keep us connected to our heritage, our culture, our history, and do it in a way that brings us up to modern efficiency standards. It's really exciting to see that. So I'm hoping that the CAPE team can use this to kind of sing it from the rooftop so we can work with local businesses to make sure that this tool is well-known and well-utilized. And I'm just so thrilled that it's moving forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Ball. Any other comments? If not, do we have a motion to adopt the resolution to participate in the CPACE program?
I'd like to make the motion to approve the resolution as stated.
Second.
Did you get that one?
Give it
Commissioner Moores and Whitesides were at the exact same time.
Commissioner Moore.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, resolution is passed. Jeremiah, thank you very much. We appreciate it. We do have one item of new business this evening. E.B. Otterstall is on her way to discuss some resolutions authorizing the county manager to submit applications to the Department of Commerce.
Good evening,
Good evening, Ivy.
Commissioners. Thank you for this time this evening. Last item, we're almost there. Get out of here. I have to drive up an icy road. I hope all of y'all have safe journeys home as well. Just a quick administrative item to continue moving on a project that y'all have heard about before. This is concerning our application to the Small Business Infrastructure Grant Program, which is through the NC Commerce Rural Division Programming. I have 2 requests for board action this evening, which I'll tell you more about at the end. This is in support of our sidewalks project in Beacon Village. Previously, we applied and were granted a application to do sidewalk repairs and extensions. And we're also looking to go back for more funding to support this project for the same grant program. As an administrative item, NC Commerce has requested resolution in support of the grant applications from the local governing board. And so that's why I'm here tonight, to make sure that we can complete the grant agreement requirements and then also pursue that second application. There's some more grant details. Just for a quick refresher, this program has a $1 million project cap and $5.5 million total available to the county. There have been several awards that were made during the last round of funding, but there's approximately $1 million remaining out of that $5.5 million total. So for next steps, our actions will be to submit a second small biz grant application and then continue to work with NC Commerce on that first grant agreement for the sidewalks project. And the requests for board action this evening are to authorize the county manager to submit the grant application to the Small Business Infrastructure Grant Program for the Whitson Ave or first small business project. And then also to authorize the county manager to submit grant application to the Small Business Infrastructure Grant Program for a second project in the same area, Beacon Village.
Thank you, EB. Are there questions?
Yes, thank you, EB, and thanks for all your work on this. And if you could just elaborate a little bit, or I know I've, and probably others, have got questions about the sidewalks. And I know that you actually, I think, submitted 5 applications originally and for a much larger project. And can you speak some, just to clarify, why not all of that was able to be awarded and that the Commerce actually selected this specific project? And then with that, talk a little bit more about then the second application and what you're hoping to do with that, please.
Sure can. Thank you for the question. So the goal of the project initially was to cover a larger area. To your point, we submitted 5 applications for funding, seeking about $5 million total in order to complete the Beacon Village area, but also sections of Highway 70 as well. However, the grant requirements from the Small Business Infrastructure Grant Program, which was allocated by the General Assembly, were to repair existing infrastructure that was damaged by the storm. And so we sought funding to repair and extend and benefit the small businesses in Beacon Village. The NC Commerce staff were very supportive of this idea. However, they decided that this was the best use of the funds, that they were the most direct repairs to existing infrastructure in Beacon Village. And so they awarded this initial project, and as well as several others for similar concepts. There is a Biltmore Village application that the city of Asheville put in to do some infrastructure repairs, similarly for pedestrian infrastructure. And so they were also weighing other projects that are in Buncombe County against that $5.5 million cap for projects in our area. So we received the first award for Beacon Village, and then based off of some cost estimates that we received from NCDOT, who will be our partner on the project, we do need additional funding to do everything that we want to do and repair and extend and provide the pedestrian access that this area so desperately needs. So we're going for a second application to make sure that we can provide the best extension of the sidewalks and repairs that we can.
And so this, with these 2 projects, if the second part is awarded, what area there in Beacon Village will this cover?
The first project is based off of repairs needed along Whitson Avenue and then also on the extending streets that help create the grid. The second project, we're looking to do a little bit more than just that initial grid square. We'd like to extend back along Railroad Street. So you can see on the map, it would be where the bead store is, and then also extending towards that little icon that says Beacon DMS, which would provide some access and support of that whole area. So it's an extension on the original idea as well, but support of repairing the damage to sidewalks on Railroad Street, and then helping complete the grid down the side.
Thank you for that clarification and for all your work on this as well. And I'll make a motion to approve the resolution for Sidewalk Project 1 and the resolution for Sidewalk Project 2.
Second.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Ball was the second. Any further comments or discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, resolutions are approved. Thank you so much, EB. We really do appreciate all your work and those around you. I think we are all hearing from the residents of Swannanoa about their excitement for these long-awaited sidewalks to come to their neighborhoods. All right, commissioners, we do have several board appointments to make this evening. The first is the Historic Resources Commission, and we have a reappointment recommendation for Robert Owens. All right, do we have a? Second. Thank you, Commissioner Sloan. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Robert Owens has been reappointed. I'm going to come down here and go to the Home and Community Care Block Grant Advisory Committee. There are 3 reappointments and 3 recommendations: Daniel Bierman, Susan Scheimer, and Melissa Harmon.
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, those 3 have been approved. We do need to find another time. Oh, yes, Kurt. We do need to find another time to schedule our strategic partnership grants interviews. Those were scheduled for this morning, and we have postponed them due to the inclement weather. And I'm curious what we meet on February 17th again, if there are any boards or commission meetings before our briefing, if we would like to do those. We have 3, if we could do them at 2. Is that a conflict for anyone?
I'm sorry, what time did you say?
We have a briefing at 3 on the 17th. There's only 3 interviews, so 2 p.m. All right, I'm seeing a consensus on 2 p.m. since we'll be here. All right, we'll get those scheduled. Thank you, Sarah and Stacy. Are there any boards or commission updates from, yes, go ahead, Commissioner Whitesides.
I'd like to update you on the Downtown Business District Advisory. I'm on advisory member of the board that I'll represent us on, which has been interesting. And because they've finished the first year and they've accomplished a lot. And one of the improvements that I like is the ambassadors they have that help the tourists downtown or even the community members. And as a result of having those ambassadors in place, we don't see the problems that we had before with some of the people, in the downtown area harassing people or whatever. And what we're doing now, I think, is going to really, hopefully, bring the local people back to downtown, in which we need it. That's the low-hanging fruit, really, not the tourists. But, so far, so good. It's going, and we have representation from that area, from a lot of the small businesses there, and the group is working well together.
Great.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Thank you for serving on that for us. We appreciate it. Are there any other updates? Go ahead.
Yeah, we had a special guest today for the Early Childhood Committee, brought in Dan Worry, who wrote a really interesting book called The Daycare Myth, and was advising us on some of his perspective at the state and national level as far as where he sees daycare and early childhood going, and hoping agreed to continue working with us over the coming months to figure out what our focused targeted investments are going to look like.
Excellent. That's great to hear. Thank you. Do you want to do housing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think just the 2 biggest takeaways for me from the Affordable Housing Subcommittee. One is that our Affordable Housing Services Program application is open. We have a lot of applicants and interest. That's going to be what that total allotment ends up being. It will be a part of our budget discussion. So know that now. There's plenty. Surprise, surprise. There's plenty of interest from a variety of groups in funding for housing-related activities, including new construction and home rehab. The biggest thing to me was there's been the biggest increase dramatically by far across my 5 years of being a county commissioner in applicants for low-income housing tax credit, new construction activity. So I think it was a total of 16 applications we've seen within the boundaries of Buncombe County this calendar year, compared to 1 to 2 for the previous many years going back, which I think we can guess as to why that is. Probably Helene has a lot to do with that. Folks interested in Helene-related grant money that might be out there. But I think it's also just a testament to the work this county has done and others to promote our desire for affordable housing construction. And if this, I think, in my opinion, if this repeats itself, if we see this kind of interest moving forward, it would be a really good sign for more affordable housing options for people in the years ahead.
Ms. Parker.
Knock on wood.
Any other boards or commission updates? All right, thank you all very much. A couple of quick announcements. The next briefing and regular meeting of the board will be held on February 17th, 2026. The briefing will be in the first floor conference room at 3 p.m., and our regular meetings will be here in chambers starting at 5 p.m. Please note that our first meeting in March has been rescheduled for Thursday, March 5th, due to the primary election being held on March 3rd. Kurt, do we have a closed session this evening?
We do. I need a motion that the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners go into closed session for the following reason: to consult with an attorney employed or retained by the public body in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the public body, which is hereby acknowledged, to consider and give instructions concerning the handling of a lawsuit in Federal District Court, Western District of North Carolina, titled Horton et al. Versus Buncombe County. Case number is 1:26CV0035. There will be no formal action taken at this time. The statutory authority is contained in General Statute 143-318.11, subsection A3.
Thank you, Kurt.
For the record, I am recusing myself from participation in the closed session due to conflict of interest. I will not be present for discussion or deliberation on this matter.
Thank you, Commissioner Horton. Do we have a motion to recuse Commissioner Horton?
So moved.
And a second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Horton, you're recused. Now, do we have a motion to enter closed session?
So moved.
I heard Commissioner Moore. Do we have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Ball. All in favor? Aye. We are officially in closed session. As our attorney said, we will not be taking formal action, so we will adjourn our meeting from closed session. Thank you all for joining us, and those of you who have a drive home, please be safe this evening.